Hello there, I'm Jim and I'm in the process of repairing a Hercules stand which has gone kaput. Basically this is one of the modern stands, and as people know the Hercules stands are brilliant. You put your guitar in and the first thing it does is grab them when you put the guitar into it, which is great. This is also a Hercules stand, but this is the older model. There's nothing wrong with the older model, and it is exactly the same mechanism at the top here, but when I got this one it was in not brilliant shape, so I've taken the opportunity to take it apart, figure out how it works, and hopefully tell you guys how you can do some repairs on one if you need to. Now the specific problem was a couple of bolts missing here, which meant the whole thing was wobbling and it wasn't locking. But I've also going to show you some other problems with this as well. You can see that these pins are off at a right old rakish angle. And if I push it down, one of them's moving, but it's actually in the wrong position. The other one, well, actually it's not doing very much at all. It's basically swinging loose. And the reason for this is twofold. In the case of the one on the right here, it's because this is in the wrong position, and we can fix that very easily. In the case of the other one, it's because the internal gearing has come unlatched. In both cases, it's not particularly difficult to fix it, so I'm just going to give you a very quick tell you how it's done. Right, the whole of this head bit here can come off very easily, and the way it's held on is with a screw, which you probably can't quite see terribly well, but it's basically there, and I've taken the screw off on this one already, so you'll just see the hole hopefully. And at that point you can just pull the whole head off. Always easier said than done one-handed. Yep, so with the screw removed, that whole end piece just comes off, and you can see it's just a push-in fit over here. So when you're ready, push it back in, put the screw back in underneath, and that will hold it together. In the meantime, looking at this then, the way these end pieces, the bits that hold your guitar into the rack, are attached is with screws. You can see one of the screws is there, and I've removed the other one on the far side. The screws themselves are covered up with little bits of black foam. You can see the ends of the black foam on this stand still intact. You need to pull those out. You can either use a screwdriver and just jemmy them out, or use a pair of pliers. This is probably a one-way process, and it's going to destroy those bits of foam. It doesn't really matter. They're cosmetic, and nothing's going to get scratched, put it that way. The screw's well in. You could probably fix it later if you wanted to with another bit of foam or something. Personally, I'm not that bothered really. I just want it to hold my guitar alive. Okay, so let's have a closer look. So we've got this on the bench now. So we've got this on the bench now, and as I said before, I've already removed the screws from the end of these. So I'm going to remove that. It should just pull off. It's quite a tight fit, just give it a good yank and it should just prise off. I'm going to unscrew and do the same with the other one. Okay, so I've unscrewed both now. Now if you look closely you can see this is like a splined gear, and basically the retrainer has a spline socket in there, and you just push it onto that, and whatever angle you push it in on is the one it stays at. So if you've got a wonky one which is moving, all you need to do is to unscrew it, move it around so the splines are in the right place, and screw it back on again. And one thing to bear in mind is it's quite easy to push this in to the unit of the main part of this body. If that happens, you can just go around the back and you'll see there are these two holes here, which I think are designed for when you're assembling this in the first place. And you could just push a screwdriver through there, and it will then push this out. You can see that one's already fallen out of its own free will, so you can see it moves quite easily. If you put a screwdriver in, you can hold it in place and then push this back onto it. So that's basically how you would fix it if it's just in the wrong place but it's still moving. Let's take a closer look inside though for the bit where it's not moving. So if I turn this upside down now, the whole mechanism is held together with 4 screws. I've removed 3 of those screws already. You can see there's one still left in by the D on patented. Again, those screws are kept underneath little bits of foam rubber, so you'll need to prise those off. Unscrew the 4 screws and it should just come apart. I'm going to remove the last screw now. Okay, so I've removed the last screw now, and this cover should pop off quite easily. If it doesn't, just jam a screwdriver around the edge and gently push. Be aware, this is spring loaded. There is a spring underneath this. When this pops up, you'll see here, oops, the mechanism's come apart slightly, but you'll see here that there is a spring underneath. don't lose it. It's not the strongest spring in the world, but that's what basically makes the thing pop back up again when you lift your guitar out of the hook. So keep that, and it goes back in that hole when we need to. How does the mechanism work overall? Well, it's pretty clever actually. We've got this one piece here at the back, which is a bar held in this captive frame, and that then goes into the chassis. You've got holes in the bar. Those fit into pegs, which you can see coming out of the guitar holder bits, and you need to, when it's working properly, those pegs will be going through the holes. At the moment it's been removed from both of the holes, but I'm going to put it back together now so you can see what it looks like when it is working. Okay, so this can be all kind of fiddly to try and get both of these end pins into the bar, and all I can suggest is keep fiddling with it. You don't need to force it that hard. Putting the bar in at an angle so the top of it is leaning towards the top of the plastic piece and the bottom is leaning towards the back of the bottom is kind of the way to go. And you fiddle around with it and eventually it will snap into position. So I've got both of those teeth going through the bar. And the way this now works is when the bar is pushed down, i.e. a guitar is put in, then it will rotate the two pegs, and that is what ultimately causes the grip to close. Now there's an additional problem with my one, which is that you can see these two metal studs here. Those are rivets that go all the way through this bottom frame, and they basically hold the one half of the stand to the other and while allowing it to move up and down. For some reason those studs have disappeared on my one, so I'm going to have to find something to replace it with, and we'll come on to that in a minute, but it does mean it's jamming at the moment. Suffice to say, when this moves up and down now, you can see both of those are now turning. Those arms aren't necessarily in the right place, but it is now working, and that's great. We'll fix that in a minute. In terms of fixing those two bolts that are missing, well, I don't have the specific bolts available to me, so what I'm going to try doing is using a couple of pop rivets I've got here. Now the pop rivet itself is too big to go through the holes, but the tail of it isn't. So I think my idea is going to be to try and break off the back of the rivet and put it through the hole, which it does fit. Snap it off on both sides and just see if I can kind of pinch it over, see if it holds it together. I'm sure there's a more elegant way to do this. In fact, almost anything will be a more elegant way to do this, but it will work. Okay, so we're mostly reassembled now. The two retaining hooks need to be pointing straight downwards. Bear in mind this whole unit is upside down at the moment. So when the two are pointing straight downwards when it's not compressed, when I compress it, you can see they close. That's basically about it. The way that they are adjusted is obviously you just push them back onto the slides and put the screws back in. As you can see, I've got a makeshift thing holding the two this piece on because the rivets were missing, which is not perfect, but it's working at the moment. I'm going to screw it all back together and then find something to permanently replace these, and at that point the whole thing should be back to working. So what I'll do, put this cap back on, screw it on, push the entire unit back onto the frame over there at the top, and put a screw through that hole in the bottom, and that'll be it. It will basically be fixed. So I hope that gives you a few ideas on how the whole thing works. Just one last look at that mechanism in case you need to. Remember, the spring sits inside that gap underneath the metal bar. Okay, hope that gives you enough to try and do your own repair if you need to. Okay, just as a final corollary to this, a few weeks later on one eBay delivery, this is a packet of what's known as Chicago screws, which means that you've got the little bit here which screws into the main bolt over here. These are a really good replacement for the bolts that hold the clamp together. They're 25mm long, and the size you need is M2, so look for M2 25mm, and that should do it. In practice you put them through and they're about maybe 1 or 2mm too long, but actually that doesn't matter. They fit really well. You can just screw them in and they're good replacements. Okie doke. You can see the two on the left here are the Chicago screws now they've been inserted. They look very similar to the others. In actual fact, on this one they're barely protruding at all. One of the other stands I had, they were protruding quite a bit, but on this one, really not that much at all. They're a perfect fit. And that's it, we're good.